Hi there, Mike Leskin here with another ABC Transcription Tools demo. One of the most common questions I get is how to scale the notation to, let's say, make it less tall so that you could fit a very tall tune with a lot of staffs on a single page. And this can be done using standard ABC annotations. Now, the most common thing people will try, and then they'll usually tell me it doesn't work because, well, it doesn't work, is just using the scale annotation. It doesn't work in abcjs with the way that I'm using abcjs, but there are a couple of other annotations you can try. The first I would suggest is, and I do this a lot, is I use staff width. And staff width essentially changes the kind of the aspect ratio of the staffs, makes them less tall, kind of compresses everything vertically while keeping the same width. So if you want to have full width notation, then using staff width. The default is about 566, but if you use something like 800, you'll see that the notation gets quite a bit less tall. But if you don't care about having the full width, there's actually a couple of other tools at your disposal, and they are left margin and right margin. And what you can see is that it brought the music in from the sides, and it also made the whole thing smaller, effectively doing a scale. And you can play with these values until you get the scale that you want. So for example, that's at 300. You can combine it with the staff width annotation, so you can get margins on a staff that you've applied a staff width to. But I'm thinking for most people, they probably just want to use the left and right margin just to make the whole thing smaller while keeping the same basic aspect ratio for the staffs. Now, all of this can be done manually, or if you want to play with the values before you commit them to the ABC, or you want to do, like, say, all of the tunes, you can go into the More Tools, and then there's a tool here called the Notation Spacing Explorer. And it exposes all of those values. So staff separation, so for example, this is the thing that changes the space between the staffs vertically. And the default is usually around 50. You can play around with the left and right margin. So we could say left margin 100 and right margin 100 and so on, until you get something that looks more like what you want. So let's say 200. And then you can just click inject spacing into the ABC. And if we now look at the ABC, you'll see that it's taking care of injecting those values for you. So that's why there is this Notation Spacing Explorer, is it just lets you kind of play around with the scaling of the ABC in one place, and allows you to then apply it to all the tunes. So if we had a whole tune book here and we wanted to apply this spacing to the entire tune book, matter of fact, I'll do an example of that right now. I'll go ahead and open up, let's say, 25 tunes here. So they're in here by default. I'm going to go into this Notation Spacing Explorer. I'm going to set the left margin to 200, right margin to 200. I'll leave the staff width alone. We'll test the values on this guy here. We'll click Inject All Tunes and then Inject Spacing into the ABC. And you can now see that all of the tunes in the tune book are now being rendered quite a bit less wide and less tall than they were before. So I just wanted to pass along that information because it is a common question I get. There are features in the tool to help you with that, specifically the Notation Spacing Explorer, and I hope you'll check them out and see if it's useful to you.